Welcome to Healing the Spirit, a space where we awaken our creativity, deepen our connections, and remember who we are through the lens of astrology, archetypes, and art making. I'm your host, Jonathan Coe. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Healing the Spirit podcast. Today I have this really beautiful conversation I recorded for all of you with my friends TanyaMarck Oviedo and Venegoni. They are the Queer Spirit podcast and I just really love their project. I love what they're doing. I love them and their energy and the care and intention that they put into their work. And recently I was a guest on their podcast. We recorded a segment called Care Chats, which they record regularly and sometimes they bring in guests. And really what it is this shared space where all of us essentially sit by the metaphorical fire and we just talk about what's in our hearts and we check in with one another and we hear what is alive and meaningful to each of us. So as we're wrapping up the year, as we're in the midst of holiday season, I want to share this with you. All right. I hope you enjoy this conversation. And if you enjoy their presence, their energy, I also would direct you to listen to their podcast, Queer Spirit. All right, I'll see you on the other side of this.
Care Chats with TanyaMarck and Nick. Care Chats with TanyaMarck and Nick. Grab a mug of care and join us for some Care Chats with TanyaMarck and Nick. Hi.
Hello.
It's proof that we've missed each other. That was like a synchronized trio of hi, all of us together with big smiles.
We've been talking about moving into winter and the solstice and all that stuff and resting, hibernating, planting seeds, reflecting.
Yeah.
It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine.
I love that check-in, TanyaMarck.
Thank you.
Yeah, speaks volumes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been a little bit under the weather and I've moved through a lot of massive life changes in the past few months. And yeah, I'm arriving today with a lot of levity. I feel like I've been shedding. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you do look a little different. Your energy looks a little different.
Yeah, I feel different. Mm-hmm.
You look like you've matured a bit.
Oh.
Wow. Ooh la la. I mean, for our
Into that.
listeners, just so you all know, like every time the three of us come together, Jonathan always looks the most transformatively different. We spend time going, hi Jonathan, it's really good to meet you again. Like it's so like you really do. It's like you have this way of like you go away. How did I describe it? Like Nick, Jonathan swims away and then when you come back, you're just someone else.
Wow.
He saw it first. Nick's the one that always sees it with you in your vibe.
I just see it very visually. Like I'm a very visual thinker and I'm just like, oh, there's something different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to share any of those transformations or do you want to keep them?
Sure. I'm happy to share. Some of them are very external this time. My job and I said goodbye to one another. They restructured. I got let go. There was a lot of grief, but it also felt like a relief. I think in many ways,
Mm-hmm.
it's something I have on some level craved for in the past few years. Yeah, and I think I've been preparing for it. So, um, here we are.
Yeah, I've had a similar thing happen with a job many lifetimes ago
Mm,
where I was so unhappy there, but I didn't even realize how unhappy I was until I was let go.
yeah.
And then I wasn't there and I was like, oh, this is so much better.
Yes. Yes. I think it's really challenging even for people who are really mindful of their own internal reality to recognize the waters we're swimming in, and I think we
Mm-hmm.
can only really know so much, especially, yeah, especially within the context and the systems we live in, right? Like in capitalism, um, not being an employee is insane. Like I just got my bills for health insurance and I was like, "What? How much do I have to pay? What?" On a freelancer
Yeah.
salary, on a creative person salary, this is wild. But at the same time, I'm also realizing like how much that system creates um like a cap, right? Like a floor and a cap for us. So on
Mm-hmm.
the one hand, yes, maybe there's a little bit of a safety net, but you're also trading your time for, you're pledging allegiance to this
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
endeavor that is often questionable in nature. You're really putting your energy, you're voting energetically with your time, with your life into entities and ways of being in the world that you may not always
Mm.
sign off on.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that happened, and also
Thank
like
you.
curious about where that what happens next for you. You know
Oh,
what I
great
mean? Or where
question.
things go, like
Yeah. Right,
there's a good
right.
cute cool little and what's going on? You know what I mean? What's gonna happen? Like who are you gonna turn into? Or all those things. My
Hmm.
mentor also was just let go recently, right,
Mm.
from her. And this is exactly why she's still my mentor 3 decades later. She said, I take this as the universe saying it's time to go and creatively hibernate and to recharge.
Mm. Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, and so some in there, that idea is there's an invite in there,
Mm.
right, to somehow take a pause in some kind of way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's such a wise response to something that I think can feel very life altering, for a lot of people. Um, yeah. I think what's next is for me what's already present. Like it's interesting because
Hmm.
our mutual friend and teacher Leah Garza, TanyaMarck.
Leah Garza,
Leah
yes.
Garza, hello Leah. If you're
Hello,
listening to
Leah.
this, Leah was using this Joyce Carol Oates, but she has a really amazing quote that says something along the lines of uh, I don't I don't change, I just become more myself. Something along that line. And I
Mm-hmm.
think uh that's where I'm at in this moment. This feels more like a return to form for me. And um I'm really taking the time to tend to these younger parts that didn't have a say
Ooh.
because me getting
Ooh.
that day job was really about like it was really driven by survival a lot of the times. But
Wow.
I'm not really in that space anymore. I'm not in a space where I'm in survival. And so it feels like there is room to breathe and simultaneously to explore the paths that I didn't take
Wow. Yeah.
last time. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm currently enrolled in Leah's Living Systems and
Mm.
Akashic Record Mentorship. And that quote is,
Hmm.
we read it and kick off and invoke class reading that, right? And what an invitation. Thanks for
Yeah.
naming that. What a place
Mm.
to be in.
Hmm.
Woo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that when we are young in our 20s and we're just entering the workforce, there's just this general idea, at least in our country, that the way that you go about making a living is you go and you work for other people and you do what they say, and that kind of thing. And I really admire younger people who get to that place earlier where they feel like they can create something of their own and have their own autonomy and have their own vision and that kind of thing. That's especially when they come from that place and they don't come from privilege, the privilege, financial privilege, where they feel like they have the freedom to just do whatever they want. But people who like work really hard to make that, take that, stamp that pattern onto their work life.
Well, I feel like the younger generation, you all, Jonathan, you all are the ones that are saying the response to it's the end of the world is you all are like, y'all are going, yeah, and we're not going to no more of this. So we're going to like let go of, right? We're going to either be exited from or let go of or find another way, if you will, you know what I mean? Or make space. So you all are the ones that, to be like quite honest, like really inspire me as an elder person to do the same. We're talking about breaking old patterns here, you all. We're talking about breaking old patterns that are embedded into systems really deeply in ways that, and so when things like this happen and you come out and you respond and say, well, this is what I'm doing with it, you're breaking, in my perception of that is you're breaking so many old cycles and patterns by saying no on many, many levels, right? Yeah. And right now in our world where we are collectively is we're watching iterations, by the way, of no's happening as the world is melting down. And what makes me curious is what's happening? What's going to be the result of all these no's and people's letting go? And me and Nick coming out as Queer Spirit official nonprofit, like rising from the ashes. I mean, I'm being serious. We're not the only nonprofits that are rising from the ashes right now and saying, we're not going to do it the old way. We're going to do it our way. We're going to do it in a way that's care-centric, right? That focuses and prioritizes care. Like when you make decisions this way, you also are doing that. I believe that strongly. You're making a decision to care and prioritize that. So, way to come in and help rebuild something new.
Thank you. I received that. How is the nonprofit going for both of you?
It's going well. It's we're slowly but surely chugging along. Yeah.
I like slowly but surely chugging along. Because it's been its own adventure.
I bet.
Really, truly, I think that's been its own, giving birth to something and co-birthing that with another person. Like, that's also really deep medicine. I think Nick and I are also breaking a ton of patterns and oldness by coming together, and the way in which Queer Spirit was birthed for its second time, if you will, or iteration, whatever iteration, and doing that in such a mindful way, right? Not in a way that is appeasing to any of the yucca mucka out there, but hey, let's do it our way. You know what I mean? And let's just try it and see what happens. Yeah. And it's been so beautiful to just see what happens, and I think we're in for a ride for 2026 for sure. And a beautiful one, that's filled with opportunities, I think, to really provide care, you know what I mean? And to model that. So, yeah.
This is what I love about hanging out with both of you. There's such a level of care and intentionality and thoughtfulness that you both bring to the table that I think is I don't want to say rare, but in my experience, rare. I'm curious if either of you want to speak to this individually or together as a partner. Like, what have been some of the patterns that you've been kind of joyfully breaking? If you want to share.
That's a good question. I mean, I think for me, I'll speak as a white male person in the world. This pattern of having I'm going to do something all on my own. It's all me, this individualistic thing, feeling like, no, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to collaborate. It's not only okay, it's a beautiful, wonderful, magical thing. And collaboration and sharing power and sharing vision for what we're creating. And also, going with the flow and sort of seeing what's going to emerge. As I said, low and, TanyaMarck's always said to me from the very beginning of us doing stuff, low and slow, even though sometimes now I'm kind of like, TanyaMarck's moving faster than I want to move. But, it's, slow and steady wins the race. And, we want this to be successful. We want this to work. And we're listening to our visions, and also we're listening to the visions of our community. We're listening to the needs of the world. And how do we navigate all that and synthesize it and work with that to bring it forward?
Wow, that's beautiful.
Just everything he said is, like, really, I mean, truthfully, like, I mean, it's just from my lens, it's from an Indigenous person of color, right? Who learned to assimilate, who learned a different iteration of on my own, and to like not trust. So coming into this with Nick and it being so low and slow, and like the foundation of things being, it truly being a foundation of friendship, and truly like, my mentor just came back from Egypt and was talking about the building of the pyramids, right? Like, I feel like Nick and I have slowly been building, right? It's like slowly been building connection without expectation of outcome, but being open to where might we find, how can we do this, and how can we do this together? But also not just saying that we're going to prioritize care, like we literally do. Like in all that we do, like our individual care will always come first, you know what I mean? And care of, ourselves and our homes and stuff. And then it's care of our community. Like we really have a walk our talk mentality, right? Around living our values in a way that I think is really potent. And I think there's a lot of stuff that it does. And it's been a beautiful experience, like really, truly, like, I think it's helped me heal in ways that I probably will spend lifetimes, just understanding and appreciating. And my hope is that what we're doing here together is, we are changing the world, and we're doing it in a way that is going to be sustainable, so that, folks can understand that there is a different way to do stuff, and I don't know, coming together and co-creating and co-collaborating in a time when, basically, everything is the tower, just being demolished and dismantled. It's been a really beautiful ride, and I would not want to have spent any other minute in any other way. We spend a lot of time together, and I'm like, I hope that our future of whoever we get to share that's how we spent our time, was changing the world in this way and coming together and figuring out like, hey, how can we just be good humans and be of service? So yeah.
And that's a wrap. Mic drop. Thank you.
I'm feeling like the theme right now that we're sort of tuning into is breaking, building, and birthing.
Ooh, geez.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's funny because, coming into this conversation, I thought, we can talk about like what's happened, what we're wrapping up and what's happening at the end of the year, and solstice and hibernating and resting. But we're kind of talking about the opposite. But as I think about it, like the solstice is also a time where there are themes of birthing.
Yes.
It's the return of the sun coming back in the northern hemisphere and the longer days. And there's ancient stories, there's the Christian story of the birth of Jesus, but there's also those stories come from older stories about the solstice and the return of the sun, or the return of the king, quote unquote, so to speak, or the and that's a birth story. So what are we birthing in the dark?
Yeah, that's such a great question.
And Jonathan, you've also been saying like that too, like you've already had a little bit of a hibernation period, and you're starting to emerge anew and birth new thoughts and ideas and versions of yourself,
Definitely.
etc.
Definitely. I feel like that process of birth is always so interesting because part of our rebirth process is actually more of a relaxing around like the places where we've been gripping, like
Mm-hmm.
where have we been grasping unnecessarily to things that we think we need, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think one of the tragedy that resulted um, from enlightenment to now is this delusion that we humans have been holding around how we can control our destiny. Right? Like this is a relatively new way of thinking, I think, in the that becomes so pervasive, right? Like that control mechanism is so strong and it's almost lauded, I think, in the collective hive mind as like you need to be smart. I actually have been having a lot of conversations around this with different people I work with long term around the idea of how, there's a moment when you realize like something that you've been working on or the way that you've been working on it is no longer really resonant with you. There's a period where it's like a progressive letting go, right? A progressive like ungrasping from ways of being that we believe we needed to adopt in order to survive, which actually has an upper limit to it, right? Like a lot of the times these grasping ways of being actually become like a ceiling to the level of pleasure and connection and, to both your points, like kind of this collaborative magic we can create, right? When we actually trust ourselves enough to move according to resonance, and according to who feels like soul kin to us, I think we can achieve really amazing things. And they're not always amazing by the metrics of the capitalist world, or even the modern world. But it doesn't, I had a business mentor who told me something that I will never forget. She said, what's life-giving is always going to be good for business. And what's good for business is not always good for life. And I think that we've kind of forgotten that. We've forgotten to prioritize life a lot of the times. And so the rebirthing that you're speaking to, Nick, I feel like a lot of it is about releasing, right? Because in the releasing, we do arrive somewhere, which is like our true nature, and
Yeah.
and there's kind of I think the capitalist structure is really thrives on us on a deeper level, believing that unless we play the game, we won't be able to make it or our needs are not going to be met. But I think it couldn't be further from the truth
Mm-hmm.
because when we feed life, life feeds us because we and life are not separate. So I think when we see it from that perspective, it always, um, yeah, what's life-giving is always available to us. Like there's no pushing necessary, right? And that pushing is, I think, different from taking aligned actions, right? That's not what I'm saying is not just like lie on your couch and do nothing all day long. Like that's not necessarily the right path for everyone either. I mean, I know that probably is right for some people at
Mhm.
certain times, but I think we as humans have kind of lost the ability to tune into the naturalness of how our energy wants to move through us,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
And the natural way that energy wants to move is life-giving.
I wonder if either of you want to share because I know that both of you do this, want to share the ways that you practice, learn, explore how energy wants to move through you.
Ooh. Well, for me, I would say in the last 6 months that energy has moved through me via grief. I think that I've really been swimming in grief, like in ways that I couldn't have imagined. And for our listeners, my uncle Louis Salgado transitioned in May. And then I found out a few months later that my father, Robert Oviedo Jr., passed in August. And both of those male figures, identifying figures in my life, I both identified them both as father figures in my life. And grief for me, and just being with it and honoring it in a way that feels good to me. I would like to thank one of my teachers and someone I co-practice with in ways, Samantha Williams, for teaching me how to work with being present in my body, to recognize how to allow myself to allow energy to move through. So for me, it involves a lot of times movement, music. I'm in consistent forms of meditative practice to be in touch with, and I'm super open. It's not always one way, that energy, like I'm open to it might want to, how it wants to be released and what I might need to access to release or to work with it. But it's really been an interesting, this has been some deep, deep, deep grief. And as we're moving into the solstice, I can feel it's been a lot of grief and shedding, grief and shedding, grief, shedding, and breaking. Literally just 2 weeks ago, I broke my foot, right? So there's this like, there's this breaking, shedding, grieving. And the invite for me has been to, my mentor, again, that I just spoke of, Diva, I love you if you're listening, and thank you so much for all of your wisdom. That this idea, we can do hard things. We can do hard things when we are connected to our practices and source. We can do hard things. And I think about that in regards to what it means to grieve, and really to grieve in a way that has been, I don't know, deep and very different than any other grief I have experienced around loved ones passing, I will say. And I attribute that to me not being the same person I was the last time that someone passed away. And so, I've been swimming there and being in touch with, and that includes being in touch with community and support and mentors and practice and a shit ton of creativity. I will tell you that I've been the most creative that I've ever been. And that has also been an outlet for me with how to navigate grief and living. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing, TanyaMarck. I see and honor your grief. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good question, Nick. I mean, for me, I feel like there are these practices. I am trained in a few different like formal energy work lineages, like energy cultivation lineages. And so I have practices from that, but I feel like spiritual practices, be they energy work or other kind of modalities, are really portals, right? They're pathways to awareness and consciousness. And I think the practice that has moved the needle the most is the practice that the formal practices have allowed me to do, which is essentially, to really look at like where my energy is going, where my thoughts are going, like what am I saying yes to through my time and my energy and my attention, right? And because wherever our attention goes, the thing grows, like that's really, I think that's part of the law of the universe, right? Like we're all kind of sharing, we're all vessels of this universal life force, and wherever we individually decide to put our attention to, put our energy on, spend time on grows. And um, being really honest, I think about why I'm choosing to put my attention on certain things have been my practice. Yeah. Probably throughout this whole year. Like, I think the question of integrity, self-honesty, what's mine and not mine, and kind of being really discerning in separating where I'm moving from trauma or kind of unmet needs or, some need for validation that's really coming from like a younger part of self or maybe a conditioned part of self versus what's truly wanting to arise through me. And the way that the my practices really kind of shift season by season for myself. Like I do have more meditative energy work practices. I have self-inquiry practices, and I also have a lot of movement practices and music practices, shall we not forget. Because I feel like, yeah, to your point, TanyaMarck, I think art making and creativity, like really letting our creative energy move, is one of the most uh, resonant ways to kind of do energy work for me in this lifetime. Yeah.
What about you, Nick?
Mm-hmm. I'm curious.
Yeah. I've been appreciating what you were both sharing and resonating with it both. I feel like for me at the beginning of this year, since we're doing a little reflection on the year, there was also some grief for me at the beginning of this year. There was a death a little over a year ago that was significant in my life. And then my parents lost their home in the fire in LA last January. And then, they had some health stuff off and on through the year. And I feel like it's only been in the last 4 or 5 months that things have finally kind of relaxed a little bit. And I made sure to take time over the summer to just relax and to have some fun. But as far as like allowing, the energy to naturally move through me, I would also say, just listening to my needs. A care chat TanyaMarck and I had at the beginning of the year was also about boundaries. So I think boundaries has been something to really navigate. Like, what do I, when I talk about boundaries, often people think about like, what am I keeping out? But it's also like, what am I letting in?
Yeah.
I think about it as like a gate. Like, what do I want to open to and what do I want to close to? And that's a way of like taking care of my energy and allowing the energy to naturally move through me. What other energy do I want to let in? And then also creativity as well. I made a commitment to myself in January that I was going to recommit to my art practice, which I hadn't done for a long, long time. And it's been really beautiful and beneficial and has really kept me sane. I mean, I've noticed that my screen time and especially social media time has dropped significantly in the last 6 months since I've been doing more art, because that's what I'd rather do.
Yes.
And it would probably be even more so if I actually had like a dedicated space, but I live in a small home. So I have to like put it all away and then take it all out. Whereas if it were some place that I could just like always come and sit down to, I would probably do that more. Yeah. But I don't have the privilege. So I have to really, part of me is like, oh, I want to do this, but it's going to take me half an hour just to set it up. And then maybe I'll put it away at the end of the day, or maybe I'll put it away tomorrow, but I know eventually it's going to have to go away because we want to sit at our kitchen table again to eat dinner. Sure. So, but yeah, it's been a discipline and a dedication. And I think also what you were saying, Jonathan, about like having all these different practices that you sort of come into and come out of, I was thinking about that too, especially around this art or even my own spiritual practice. Like I noticed that within my household, my husband and I, we don't really do much like formal spiritual practice so much as we used to earlier in our relationship. And I think that it's something that it's the gift of discipline and practice and experience and maybe even eldership, is like all those things that you do, you're creating these structures within you, and it takes time and practice to cultivate them. But then after a while, you don't have to spend so much time and energy formally setting it up. It's just sort of happening.
Yeah.
The spiritual practice is just happening. You're living it. You're living the spell, you're living the prayer, you're living the magic, you're living the ritual. You're not doing it, you're just living it.
Yes.
That's that walk your talk mentality.
Yeah.
Walking your talk, living your values. Like it's more of it's embedded, into things. So yeah, I love that. Woohoo. Yeah, shall we wind down with gratitude?
Well, recently, especially in more of that kind of personal tower moment of losing my day job, which was a big part of my life for the past decade. Um, something that's emerged for me is like a deep sense of gratitude for people in my life. And it was really kind of incredible because I think in the past 5 to 6 years, certainly since after the pandemic, um, more of my orientation towards connection has been trusting wherever I'm being led, trusting wherever my energy is leading me. Like I don't try to make friends in ways that I perhaps did when I was earlier on in my life, right? I wasn't trying to uh attract certain people into my life. It was more just kind of like me showing up and then allowing my natural way of being to attract to me the right kinds of connections and also not holding on to it either, right? Like there's always an open door policy. And I think in that moment of things being shaken up, I realized that these human connections, including both of you, is what is really kind of the foundation that's holding me as this thing that I've, rested my livelihood on, but also probably a fair amount of my ego on, is kind of like shaking itself off, right? And
Mhm.
as that's being taken away, I realize, wow, there's so much to be grateful for in terms of aligned communities. And like, for example, the three of us, we're all living in different places, but
Mhm.
we are connected in this uh strange Twilight Zone online medium, which is really fabulous, and um, so I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for, deep soul nourishing connections and the ways that we can stay in touch with one another through technology. I think
Mhm.
there's a lot of, rightfully so, there's a lot of collective unrest about technology. And I agree with a lot of that, but also without technology, we wouldn't be able to connect in this way. And I'm extremely grateful for these connections as a self-proclaimed hermit. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, what am I grateful for? Well, I would resonate with that, especially, gratitude for connections, also as a semi self-proclaimed hermit. As challenging as all the different things that are happening in the world in the last year, 5 years, life. I'm grateful for the lessons that they're bringing, the awareness that it's bringing to me,
Mm,
to bring me outside of myself, but then also giving myself permission, as I was saying about my art practice, just to come back to myself for me,
Mm.
and having the balance the benefit, the privilege of being able to do the things that I want to do for myself, to take care of myself, so that I can also support others.
Yeah, we're going so deep. I love it. I would say that it's gratitude for the taking this. Really, it's been a big theme. Gratitude as an action. So, and gratitude in the way of I like being willing to let go of some really old stories and narratives, and like being really okay with like, who knows what's over there? Who cares? Like, let's just see. And that's been a really deep thread for me on a very deep internal level. And I have a lot of gratitude for my practice, my community, my connection to source, my openness to begin again, in ways I think that spiritually have been really nourishing for me. And I'm finding myself like, ooh, wow, I really needed my own kind of sweeping out, if you will, of some things. And honoring that, right? I feel very grateful, and I feel grateful for connection and community. That's also been something I've really been calling in this year, or calendar year, and all of the experiences, even the bumpy ones and the disruptive ones, and all the no's and all the yeses. I feel grateful for all of it, and for being present. I feel that that's something that has come with like this idea of allowing myself to grieve, to be, to live, to create, to authentically be me, right? Like I'm, pursuing being in my own body in a way, via top surgery, like all of the things that are happening, I feel very grateful for, because I do feel like that I am just becoming more me. That's really, truly, and this year has been about letting go of stories around all the old bullshit. It doesn't matter. They weren't even my stories sometimes, but I chose to hold on to them. So it's been really lovely. And I feel very grateful for folks like you, because you all I feel like it's, we've been alongside each other, just like queerly cheering each other on and just caring and supporting each other, and just being like, yeah, yeah. And we don't live in the same location, but there's deep love here and deep kinship and deep connection. And I feel like, isn't that what it's all about? Mm-hmm. Right? Like at the end of the day. So, I feel very grateful for all of it, the yucca mucka and all the joy and all of it, the whole spectrum, yeah.
Yes.
It was so great to spend time together.
Thank you. This is so nourishing to me.
Samesies.
I appreciate you both.